Can a pellet smoker cook a brisket as good as a stick burner? That was the question I asked a few weeks back, and it drove the internet insane. I have cooked some pellet grill briskets that I thought were phenomenal and amazing, and the people that tried it also thought it was phenomenal and amazing. So in this video, I'm going to share with you my experience and my thoughts on cooking a pellet smoker brisket and a stick burner brisket at the same time. Bought 2 briskets, both of them were prime. I trimmed them both. I seasoned them the same with my soon to be released APC brisket rub. I put them both in at the same time, at the same temperatures to begin with, and I spritzed them at the same time and did my best to maintain consistent temperatures on both pits all day long. Now it was a lot easier on the pellet grill. So with that said, let's fire it up.
That one tasted a little better to me. Don't get mad, man. Don't throw stones. I'm telling you.
So a little history about why we're even having this debate. Stick burners are traditional. They set the standard and created all barbecue mythos. Now, pellet grills are the new tech and indeed do have their place in barbecue. And yet they seem to be a natural enemy to the stick burner crowd. Now, this debate seems to be the biggest around the brisket, since traditionally briskets have been cooked low and slow in big smokers. You see it all the time, all the arguing and the fighting and the debating on social media between the stick burner crowd and the pellet crowd. Now, the fact that most major barbecue pit manufacturing companies have made a huge shift to pellet grills and smokers tells us that there's a huge demand. Even some previously only stick burner dedicated manufacturers have shifted their focus to pellet grills as well. In fact, if you were to walk into the typical barbecue store, you would ask the owner or the salespeople there, what is their #1 selling smoker? It would probably be pellet grills. Part of the reason is the super busy hustle and bustle lifestyle of all of us in the day and age that we live in. Plus, not everybody has a big backyard to store cords and cords of different flavored woods to power their stick burners. Pellet grills have been accused of being easy bake ovens. I'm going to have to agree with that comment. I am going to say it is indeed an easy bake oven, but yet the stick burner is no different. It is in fact what I call the hard bake oven. Take it how you like it. It's a hard bake oven because it takes a lot of hard work to get that brisket to be so amazing and incredibly tasty and smoky, and that's assuming you know exactly what you're doing and you know how to run a good clean fire. With pellet smokers, you don't have to come out every 15, 20, or 30 minutes and check your fire and your temperature, reload another stick, and basically work your tail off all day on that hard baking oven. You can run off of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. However, with those pellet smokers, there are some disadvantages. You must have power at all times. And if you lose power, you know what? You're going to lose that amazing brisket you thought you were going to have from when you got home from work that afternoon. And in order to run that pellet cooker through Wi-Fi and internet, well, you need internet too in addition to power.
It's drizzling, so I'm getting a little bit of drizzle on the side of the pellet grill. And if you know anything about electricity and water, they don't go very well together, so I'm going to move it right now.
Stick burners produce that nostalgic, amazing barbecue flavor that dreams are made of. The stick burners have no moving parts other than the hinges, and they're generally built of extremely good, heavy-duty quality. Now, if all the conditions are right, you have the right wood size, the right moisture in the wood, and if you actually know how to run a stick burner with good, clean fire, good, clean smoke, you will be rewarded with that amazing barbecue brisket that dreams are made of. Honestly, that amazing stick burner flavor cannot be matched, and that's one of the reasons why all the big barbecue houses, particularly in Texas, cook on stick burners. Some of these places have 5,000-gallon stick burners. It takes a lot of wood and a lot of labor to cook on these cookers. Don't you really think that if they could do that with a pellet grill and save thousands of dollars and increase their profit on a pellet grill, wouldn't they be using a pellet grill? Now, these big barbecue houses with these giant smokers and the enormous amounts of wood that they use is in fact part of the reason why barbecue wood has gotten so expensive for the little guy like you and me. That's another video though. Now, stick burners in general, particularly the smaller ones like the one I have back here, they tend to be cantankerous, temperamental. You got to have that firebox pointed in just the right direction for the airflow. The conditions have to be just right in order to produce some amazing barbecue. And again, that's assuming you know how to run a stick burner with good, clean smoke. And once again, if you do get it just right, you will be rewarded with some incredibly amazing briskets and barbecue.
We lost quite a bit of temperature. Like I keep saying, you got to really watch the temps on these stick burners. We're down right around 225 right now, 220, 225. So got to stay on it.
Now, the technique that I use to cook pellet grill briskets is to start with the meat side up, give it 3, 4, 5 hours and get some amazing smoke at a low and slow temperature like 225. Then I'm going to flip that guy over and I'm going to continue to develop a new bark on the fat side. And it may be another 5, 6, 8 hours before I actually wrap it. And I'm going to keep it fat sides wrapped in butcher paper in a pan. Sometimes I'll put a little beef broth or a little bit of water in the pan to maintain that moisture level. I am going to wrap it in butcher paper. I do find that butcher paper helps retain more of that stick burner like flavor on your pellet grill brisket. Now, on the stick burner, I find that I can run hot and fast and develop my bark a lot quicker. I don't necessarily need to cook it on the meat side up and then flip it over to fat side, because I find that I can run higher temperatures, develop that bark a little bit quicker at 300 to 325 degrees. When I wrap that brisket, I'm going to slow the temperature down to 250 to 275 to help maintain and keep all that moisture, collagen and connective tissue inside the meat. Now, in order to keep things fair for this video, I did treat the stick burner brisket the same way as I did on the pellet grill by using a pan. So I did lay them on at the same time, maintained consistent temperature on both of them. Again, it was easier on the pellets. I spritzed them at the same time, kind of looking for color and seeing if there was a lot of difference at different points in the color of the briskets. And after 3 hours, I probed for temperature just to kind of see where we were at on that. I went ahead and wrapped each brisket between 165 and 175 when it was time to wrap each of the individual briskets. Now, by using this cooking technique on both briskets, getting smoke on the meat and then getting smoke on the fat, remember, there were several hours where I was not smoking the top fat side, so we did have to sacrifice some of the bark. However, as I mentioned earlier, you do tend to get a good smoky flavor all the way around the brisket doing it this way. Now, after I got them both wrapped, I did my best to maintain 275 consistently on my stick burner throughout the rest of the cook. And it was really hard, but I did manage to maintain 225 on the pellet grill by switching that button to 225. And one of the reasons I like to lower the temperature to 225 on the pellet grill is because if you get too hot and you have the meat on the bottom, that deflector plate on the bottom will kind of roast and toast the bottom of that brisket, and I don't like that crispy bottom. I like it to be nice and soft. Now, I needed to use a sheet pan on my stick burner because I was using butcher paper to wrap my brisket, and this particular stick burner has some very rough grates, so I wanted to use a sheet pan in order not to tear up my paper. So I did use a sheet pan in my pellet grill as well. It only took about 11 to 11 and a half hours to cook the pellet grill brisket. The stick burner brisket took a solid 14 hours, but remember, it did weigh 5 pounds more than the one I cooked in the pellet smoker.
We're going to reheat them. As soon as they're ready to go, we're going to pull them and get them onto the cutting board and slice and do our final comparison. There you go.
It comes down to this. Some cooks, particularly the stick burner crowd, loves to play with fire, and they don't mind playing with that fire and loading them sticks every 20, 30, 40 minutes all day long. It's part of the fun, they say. And if you're an old school cook like that, there's probably nothing I can say here today in this video that's gonna change your mind. But I have seen some hardcore stick burner guys that used to bash pellet grills do a 180 when they actually gave the pellet grill a chance. If your idea of fun is feeding that stick burner sticks every once in a while for 14 to 18 hours, more power to you, man. I love doing it myself once in a while. But then again, there's some folks that are just so busy and or live in small townhouses or apartments and just don't have room for cords of wood or even the time to babysit a stick burner for 14 to 18 hours. So for these folks, a pellet grill just makes more sense. We've been running at 250 on this one all day. Stick burner's been pretty inconsistent, a little challenging, blowing about 20 miles an hour out here, and the air's starting to get really cold. That affects both pits quite a bit, but let's see what we got here. All right, now here's my conclusion after prepping, cooking, slicing, tasting both briskets side by side. And keep in mind, this is my experience and my experiment, and your mileage may vary from mine. So at the end of this experiment, after tasting the Pellet Grill brisket that I just did, I was super amazed at how incredibly good it really was. Now when I took that first bite of the stick burner brisket, I was shocked. But then I realized I had taken a bite of the meat side, which had been on the bottom during the wrap, so it didn't have that smoky bark on it. But when I took a bite of the top that had the smoky bark on it, then I was like, oh, okay, you've been redeemed, little brisket. That smoky stick burner flavor did indeed shine through, and I'm gonna say that it definitely had a slight edge, and the smoky flavor lingered and danced on my tongue a little bit better than the Pellet Grill smoker did. I am gonna say this, that in all honesty, I don't think the average person, if you put them side by side, is gonna be able to know the difference. In fact, I had some family come over and we gave them some side-by-side taste tests, and I was shocked, but 4 out of 10 picked the Pellet Grill brisket. 40% of them thought the Pellet Grill brisket was better than the stick burner brisket. So I rest my case. So the question again is, can a pellet smoker cook a brisket that tastes as good as a stick burner? 40% of my taste testers thought it did. So at the end of the day, it really depends on your palate and or experience with stick burner briskets. I honestly, when my taste testers get here, it's gonna be interesting to see what they say, because I honestly thought this one tasted a little bit better, the Pellet Grill, right off the bat. And I had to do a second bite on the stick burner brisket. So what did I think after all the dust settled? What did my wife Terry think? Well, to be honest with you, we're kind of stick burner snobs too. And when we want a really, really amazing brisket, we're usually gonna use the stick burner. As I said earlier, once in a while, I don't mind sitting out there for 14 hours feeding that little stick burner to get that amazing flavor. However, there are many times, more times actually, that I actually use my pellet smoker, and using the technique that I use, it's almost as good as that stick burner. And I think that at the end of the day, they'll never be exactly the same, because from one weekend to the next, even a stick burner brisket may not taste exactly the same. And from one stick burner to another, it may not taste exactly the same, because there's so many variables. The logs you're using, the moisture content, the wind, the humidity, there's so many variables that can affect the ultimate flavor of your stick burner brisket. And again, that's assuming you know how to run a stick burner properly. They can and indeed are both amazing at cooking briskets, but they are definitely different at the core, and of course the whole process is a little bit different. It's kind of like comparing Domino's to Pizza Hut. They're both pizza, but they're different. Kind of like the difference between a red salsa and a green salsa. Both can be amazing. I still like the red better though. You see, barbecue is, always has been, always will be about personal preference. You see, the stick burners in the Carolinas think their briskets are the best. The stick burners in Kansas think their briskets are the best. The stick burners in Oklahoma think they're the best. We Texas guys, we know we're the best. So at the end of the day, it does really come down to preference. I'm just ribbing you guys, okay? Don't get all worked up about it. I know you think yours is better, and I think mine's better. It's okay, we can still be friends. So the whole thing about the pellet grill cookers, smokers, and grills is that they're very easy to use, they're very convenient, and they do have their place in this new age of barbecue, particularly for very busy folks, or for folks who don't have the space to store a lot of wood or the time to babysit a stick burner forever. You see, those folks still want to cook some great barbecue for their families and their friends. And I'm going to say that they can indeed do it on this new age of pellet smokers. But if your choice is to cook on a stick burner, that's okay too. I like both. Trust me, this is a $100 brisket. This was an $80 brisket. I wasn't going to cook them just for the heck of it. I wanted to do a really fair comparison to see how they would turn out. And they both turned out phenomenal. This probably just made the debate rage even more. Let me know what your experience has been with pellet grills or stick burners in the comments. Tell me what your thoughts are. Tell me what you thought about my experiment here. And if you're interested in my barbecue rubs, the WOW and the OG, you can find those at pitmaster.us. If you're not a real experienced barbecue cooker and you want to up your barbecue game and or learn how to cook barbecue, I do have an online barbecue class at pitmasterclass.us. There I cover all the different types of smokers, fire controlled, everything you need to know to cook amazing barbecue. Thanks for watching, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Keep the smoke light and make it work. Boom! Wow. Wow.